Can't legislate love, but we can name hate. Can't fix what you won't face at the gate. So we name it wars, tariffs, ice, wage gap, prison pipe, call each idol down and flip the light. This ain't about fame, it's about food. Not platforms, but power in the hands they exclude.
We won't stop till the whole county rise. We won't stop till the whole county rise. We won't stop till the whole county rise. This is our work until all thrive. Until all thrive. This is our work until all thrive.
Can't legislate love, but we can name hate. Can't fix what you won't face at the gate.
Well, everybody, welcome to today's show. This is James Gailliard, and welcome to Until All Thrive. I am grateful that you are joining me today. I'm excited to jump right in, and I'm going to do just that. I'm going to jump right on in. So happy Monday, everybody. Hey, listen, I'm going to do a few little different things with this show. I've been praying through it. Last Monday, we had our first show, and obviously this is number 2, and we're going to be tweaking along the way. We're going to still go with all of our segments of spelling out thrive, but I want to make sure that we're doing some deep dives, and today I'm going to do a little bit of that. Don't know how far we're going to go, but I want to begin today's show by just thinking through, just imagining, if you will, and many of you are in this situation, starting your day in rural eastern North Carolina. Think about for a moment the roads that you drive on. Think about for a moment the schools that your children attend. Think for a moment about the grocery prices at the grocery stores and supermarkets and shopping centers that you shop at. Think for a moment about the rent you pay, your mortgage. Think about the opportunities and the jobs, the new job opportunities that are coming and the jobs that are leaving, like we are probably about to have in Eastern North Carolina. Think about all of the decisions that shape your life. And this is what I want you to really grab a hold of. The air that we're breathing, the water that we're drinking, how much broadband access we have. Man, the list just goes on and on. The access of healthcare providers, the quality of the schools. This is what I want you to recognize. In a very real way, almost everything that I have described just now is the decision-making apparatus is out of our control. It is, well, that's not true. It's not out of our control, but it's beyond our county boundaries. And so today, what I want to do in today's show is I want to help us bridge policy and everyday life. I want us to see the connecting points between the things we experience every day and then how those decisions are made. Who makes those decisions? How do those individuals get to a place of making those decisions? And so when we begin thinking about it, who are the real players that are enabling our communities to thrive? And so in today's episode of Until All Thrive, I want to connect the dots between high-level politics and the struggles and hopes of everyday people in rural eastern North Carolina and really, quite frankly, throughout our state. And so I want to explore what it takes to ensure that everyone, from our smallest towns to our biggest cities, to make sure that everyone is thriving, that we're not just getting by, but we have at least an opportunity for a fair chance to prosper. And so this is the deal for today's show. I want to talk about how policy meets the personal. In today's show, I want to talk about how it's our job as a community to respond to how these decisions are made. And so that's what we're going to cover on today's show. So would you go ahead and subscribe? Would you go ahead and invite a friend? Would you go ahead and share this with someone? And in just about a few seconds, we're going to jump into our segments. Here are the issues that I want to cover today for as much of it as we can get to, okay? The first segment is I want to do a deep dive on Michael Whatley. I want to talk about who Michael Whatley is. Who is this guy that is running as the Republican candidate for U.S. Senator against Roy Cooper? I want to talk about his alignment with Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, or former Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. I want to talk about his controversial brand of politics. I want you to know his name, okay? I want you to know what he really represents. I want you to be able to connect the dots intellectually and from a public policy lens on the legacy of the Trump era policies here in North Carolina. And I then want to give you my take on from a faith and a political leadership lens. So I want to do a deep dive on Michael Whatley. Secondly, in my second segment today, or our second segment today, I want to talk about the dismantling of diversity, equity, and inclusion, the dismantling of DEI in the university college system here in North Carolina. I especially want to deal with that because our children just went back to campus and they're going back to campus. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. In our third segment, if we get to it, I want to talk about national rollbacks of DEI and how the national platform is playing out from a larger perspective and how it's having an impact. So at the local level. So what threats are happening around academic freedom? What are those trends? What do they mean for us in North Carolina? Segment 4, if we get to it, I want to do a deep dive on the affordable housing crisis we're in. I want to talk about what the real numbers tell us. I want to dig into an eye-opening stat on rent versus wages. I want to talk about why rural communities are feeling the squeeze. Segment 5, what does it mean to be a Tier 1 county? You know, oftentimes, I want you to think about this. I'll get into this when we get into the tier system that has been developed and outlined, defined by the Department of Commerce. But I want us to recognize something, that oftentimes the people that are making decisions for us in Tier 1 and Tier 2 counties live in Tier 3 counties. Isn't that something? And so I want to talk about what that looks like. I want to talk about us understanding the tier counting system. And I don't know that we'll get to segment 6, which is just a rapid fire headlines on North Carolina politics this week. If you are new, I'm James Gailliard. I'm your host. I'm asking you to subscribe. I should be on all the platforms. I should be on Facebook and on YouTube. I'm specifically asking you to follow me on my YouTube channel. And you should be able to find this on jamesgailliard.com, on my political campaign page, and on a podcast. And so wherever you get a podcast, iTunes or whatever the case may be, if you type in my name, James Gailliard, or you type in Until All Thrive, go ahead and subscribe, because as our subscriber base grows, I'm going to be doing some added content just for our subscribers. And so, hey, take a listen to this. We'll be right back to jump into our first segment.
Can't legislate love, but we can name hate. Can't fix what you won't face at the gate. So we name it wars, tariffs, ice, wage gap, prison pipe, call each idol down and flip the light. This ain't about fame, it's about food. Not platforms, but power in the hands they exclude.
We won't stop till the whole county rise. We won't stop till the whole county rise. We won't stop till the whole county rise. This is our work until all thrive.
Well, we are back, and I want to jump right in. Welcome, y'all. I'm so glad you're here. Let me know that you're on air. I always check them when we get off air, your comments, because they help form my content for the upcoming shows, okay? Who in the world is Michael Whatley? Whatley is the North Carolina GOP, the Republican candidate for U.S. Senator. I want to do a deep dive on him. I want you to know his name. If you're new to the show, what I'm deliberately doing with Until All Thrive is I'm talking about the issues that really can move our lives forward in a positive way. I'm dealing with the issues that and the individuals and the people that we hear about on the news and in all of the places. I'm deliberately doing a deep dive on those individuals so that we can begin having holistic conversations about the things that really matter the most, okay? I think two of the things that matter the most are where we stand in terms of our religious beliefs and where we stand in terms of our political engagement and our public policy understanding. And that's the reason I do this show, Until All Thrive. It is my mantra in life. And listen, I've got merch coming up, by the way. So hopefully by next Monday, all my segments, I'll be in an Until All Thrive shirt. And of course, they'll be available for you should you want to get one. So let's talk about Michael Whatley. I'm going to make a statement. Let me say this out the gate, and then I'm going to prove it to you, okay? Because, you know, I'm all about the data. This is going to be a real yucky thought. So don't think about it sexually, okay? Don't think about it sexually. Think about it morally. Think about it ethically. Think about it politically. Think about it socially. If Donald Trump, the current president of the United States, and former Lieutenant Mark Robinson, former Lieutenant Governor in North Carolina, Mark Robinson, were to have a baby, that baby will be Michael Whatley. That's the image I want you to get. It is the union between Donald Trump and Mark Robinson. That's who Michael Whatley is. So let's talk about him. He was former chairman of the North Carolina Republican Party. He went on to become Republican National Committee co-chair. He has launched now a campaign for U.S. Senate with a full-throttled endorsement, a full-throated endorsement from President Donald Trump. Let me tell you what Donald Trump says about him. Donald Trump says he's one of the most capable executives in our country. Okay. And so now Whatley is going to be contested against Roy Cooper, what will be the most expensive U.S. Senate race in history. And I personally think, you can mark my words, you know, we'll come back the day after Election Day 26, because I'll come on air, and I'll probably go on air that night as everything's coming in. I predict that Roy Cooper will win that race by 4 points. I predict that Roy Cooper will win the U.S. Senate seat by 3.5 to 4 points. And so here is why I say he is the baby child of Mark Robinson and Donald Trump. First of all, Donald Trump has fully endorsed him. Second of all, he fully endorsed Mark Robinson. He fully embraced all of the bigotry. He praised him as a man of tremendous faith. Pause here for a moment. Let me give you some insight about how I'm going to be operating on this show. Whenever anyone raises the element of faith that claims Christianity, you have a guarantee that James Gailliard is going to talk about you on Until All Thrive. Because what I am tired of is watching evangelicals, far-right conservatives, Christian nationalists literally wrestle the faith away from those of us who have legitimate faith in Jesus Christ. And so when you say this is a man of tremendous faith, faith in what? Because what happens when we look at people like a Whatley, a person like a Mark Robinson, a person like a Donald Trump, there's no element of them that are Christ followers. They are people who have idolatrous relationships with money, with power, and with gender. These are generally men. They have a few women that they have been able to drink the Kool-Aid, but they are people that have a purity test. The purity test is not, is Jesus Christ Lord? The purity test is not, did God really come for the disenfranchised to help all people? The purity test is not, can we live in a nation, a society, a culture where everyone can have a possibility of thriving? The purity test for these Republicans Was the 2020 election stolen? That's the purity test. If you don't embrace that, you're going to be seated in the parking lot somewhere, okay? So we all know that that election was not stolen, but that is their purity test, which is why you have defectors away now from the Republican Party, like former Lieutenant Governor in Georgia. And so this is a man who fully has embraced the track record of Mark Robinson. Mind you, Robinson lost the gubernatorial race to Josh Stein by 15 points. Now, you know, I like to think I'm a friend of Josh Stein's, and he's a friend of mine. Let me just be really clear. You know, he won it because he was just that poor of a candidate. He lost it because he was that poor of a candidate. Like, Mark Robinson was probably the worst candidate you could have, and yet the guy who now wants to be our U.S. Senator, he wants to represent us, every single one of us, Michael Whatley, thinks that this guy was a stand-up guy. So every sexist post, every bigoted comment, calling LGBTQ plus people filth. Listen, we have our hands full, and I think we are at a crossroads in our national history where this just needs to be said. It needs to be said that we have enough work making sure people have access to health care, that we have outstanding institutions, that we have economic opportunity for all groups of people, that we have an immigration system that actually works for the benefit of everybody, that we're not disproportionately and inappropriately damaging our immigrant population. We have enough work trying to fix public education. We have enough work trying to reduce the deficit. We have enough work trying to keep our roads and bridges upright. We have enough work trying to help farmers and make sure that we have access to produce. We have enough work of trying to build houses. Are y'all catching me yet? We are so busy, I don't have the luxury of hanging out in your bedroom. As a matter of fact, I don't have an interest in being in your bedroom, and we should be suspect. Be honest. Be honest. See, the issue is y'all won't be honest. Is it or is it not creepy for a politician to be curious about your bedroom? I don't care if you are black or white, Democrat or Republican. It is creepy, sir, that you care about someone's bedroom, that you care about intimate, personal things when you could be doing something with the economy. But what we have done is we have created this narrative, this social, cultural war narrative around abortion. Let me tell you something. Almost everybody, and let me be, before I make a statement I'm about to say, be clear. Like, I'm running for office in 26. I'm going to be on the ballot too. I'm on ballot as a Democrat. I'm not your typical Democrat. Like, I'm not going to be talking some of the stuff that some of my colleagues are talking. So I'm about to say something that some of them are going to disagree with. But that's why I'm going to get elected in Nash, Vance, and Franklin County, because I know I talk to folk there because I live there. Let me tell you something about, say, the abortion issue. Almost everybody, very few exceptions, and the exceptions to this don't matter. Like, they are such a small group, we shouldn't even be thinking about them. Almost everybody that I know with a brain is at some point pro-choice and at some point pro-life. Almost everybody I know. So I don't know. I personally, now I'm not saying they don't exist. I personally don't know late-term abortion people. I personally don't know them. I literally have never had a conversation with anyone who's like, a woman should be able to get an abortion in the 8th month. I'm not talking about things where her life is in jeopardy or something like that. That's given stuff, right? I'm talking about I just woke up one day and don't want to be pregnant. I don't know those people. So when we create all these polls and stuff that people want to have 8-month abortion, that's a lie. That's just to create division. That's all that is. That's just try to establish some purity test amongst a group of people. And at every point, the people that I know are pro-choice. Even Republicans I know, if a 14-year-old, 12-year-old gets raped, the average thinking, compassionate, caring Republican I know, they don't want that child to have to carry that baby. They don't want a person to have to lose. As a matter of fact, when you say, think about this for a moment. When you say, even in the case of a mother's life being in jeopardy, I'm talking to my extreme far-right Republicans that y'all have drunk the Kool-Aid acting like they actually know Jesus and are really Christians when they are not. When they say, even in the life of a mother, even in the life of a mother is being jeopardized, even in the event of the risk of the mother's life, she should still carry the baby to term and have the baby, even at risk her own life. Well, if she's carrying a life and she is a life, and you say she should have the baby, even if it risks her life, then you've just chosen a life. You've just proven that you are pro-choice. You've made a choice. So the point that I'm trying to get you to see is that we have people standing up like the Republican candidate for U.S. Senate who embraces bigoted, who has endorsed a candidate who says the LGBTQ plus community is filth. Is that really a guy you want representing you? And look, I'm going to go because I want you to know who he is. I don't want you thinking, oh, he's going to help with this. He is going to be, how can I say this? Probably getting ahead of myself on this. He is going to be a clone of Donald Trump and Mark Robinson 2.0. That's who he is going to be. Be clear about that. And so for those of you that's tuning in, I am in segment 1 talking about Michael Whatley's Senate run and why I will not let him wiggle out of the shadows of Mark Robinson. Mark Robinson is a big, towering figure, and sir, you will remain in the shadows of Mark Robinson for this campaign, at least as long as I have a microphone, because I'm not going to allow people to code switch. And they're going to say one thing when it's beneficial for them, and then they're going to change their mind when changing their mind is beneficial. And so Mark Robinson is the guy that pushed for a total abortion ban. Whatley is the guy who's like, this is my guy. So he's going to come out this election, and he's going to try to moderate that. May we not forget, he was the one that when Mark Robinson was pushing a total abortion ban, he was 100% on the bandwagon. And so we're going to see from him far-right positions. We're going to see from him incendiary remarks. And we need to make sure that we understand he's embracing, let me tell you how in disarray, if we pay attention, people. You got Whatley, who used to be chairman nationally for the Republican Party, former chairman, North Carolina Party, running now for U.S. Senate, and fully have endorsed Mark Robinson, who is a bigot and all the negative things. Let me show you how much disarray the Republican Party is in. This is what Mark Robinson said about, this is what Tiller said about Mark Robinson. He's an embarrassment. So you have a guy who's leaving the office saying that somebody is an embarrassment, a guy who's trying to come into the same office saying that guy is my hero. That's the kind of disillusionment. When everybody else was leaving Mark Robinson, Whatley was standing firm with him. When as a matter of fact, he referred to him as a man of the people. Even when he quote unquote said, even with many have known his flaws. And so I want our voters and I want those of us who listen to my show, I want us all to be reminded that the same extreme ideology that Mark Robinson championed is going to be central to Whatley's platform. Now, let's go beyond that. All that was, and I told you I'm doing a deep dive today, all that was the personality side. Let's deal with the policy side. Let's say, for example, you know what, Pastor, let's say, hey, Gailliard, you know what? Okay, I hear you, but some people just don't have the best personalities. I can get past that. I mean, some of y'all doing that with Trump, right? What about the policy position? Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of the policy positions, and let's specifically talk about not only how it impacts all of North Carolina, but let's talk about how it impacts particularly rural Eastern North Carolina. I love Eastern North Carolina, and that's why I'm running for office, because I love North Carolina so much, and I love the eastern part of the state. The big, beautiful bill. The big, beautiful bill. Whatley championed that bill. And let me take it down to local politics. The chairman, his name is escaping me. It'll come to me. I copied the letter because I wanted to make sure I could reference it when I needed to. The chairman of the Nash Republican Party, when they made a statement about Cooper running for office, and I believe it might even have been about Whatley. I can't remember now, but I know it was definitely about Cooper in a negative sense. I highlighted the line. It says, "We support President Trump." When they say things like "we support President Trump," I want you to bring those federal policies down to a granular level. I want us to think about how the federal policies come down to where you and I live, work, go to school, shop, recreate every single day. And so when we start thinking about, for example, this big, beautiful, big, ugly, big, bold, big, obnoxious bill, it gives wealthy families hefty breaks while it threatens public school funding. It's what type of human being tries to destroy an institution that they are a byproduct of? When you begin thinking about, most of the people that make these policies to destroy public education, most of them, not all of them, but most of them are a byproduct of public schools. So it's interesting to me. And so the connecting point is that legislators here in Raleigh, here in the North Carolina General Assembly, they're opting right in. They're opting right into the voucher scheme. All of the nine. As a matter of fact, Josh Stone, the governor, vetoed the opt-in bill. I'm going to talk about that on another show, calling out how it was going to, quote, hollow out public schools and give tax giveaways to wealthy parents already in private schools. Meanwhile, Whatley, who wants to represent us in the U.S. Senate, is aligning with Trump. Here is the theme of my show. My theme of my show is how do we connect the dots between things that are going on federally and statewide, and how do we make them connect in to Nash, Vance, Franklin, Edgecombe, Halifax, Bertie, Wake, whatever the county is, Johnson, Wilson. That's the theme of the show. The sub-theme of the show is one of the individuals who's now asking to be voted into office to be able to be our champion and our advocate and our representative. He literally is promoting things that are damaging our state and our community. And so he has never, that means Whatley, has never distanced himself from any Trump-era policies. So remember, Trump has a whole history prior to becoming a second-term president. And so, he's fully supported the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. Let's put partisan politics aside for a moment. Can we do that? If you're able to do that, let me know you're able to do that. Let's put gender aside for a moment. Let's put race aside for a moment. Let's put every socio-political, social-demographic piece of data aside for a moment. Okay, y'all ready? Help me understand, what is it you can effectively do without being healthy? Think about everything that happens in your life. If you have poor health, So let's just say for a minute, an employer has an open position. Two people equally qualified for the job apply. One guy applies for the job and he's leaving another job where he has health care. And because of that, he's been getting regular checkups, et cetera, et cetera. The other guy has been unemployed for a year, but he's qualified for this position. They have the same degrees. They have the same work experience. This other one just has been out of work for a year, but because of that, he lost his health care. He's being viewed as deemed eligible to work, so all of the new systems take him off medical coverage. And he hasn't been able to work, and because of that, he winds up with a cancer diagnosis, and with that cancer diagnosis, he can't access health care. But he's qualified for this job. He's qualified for the job. He comes in, and because he can't get chemotherapy, the tumors are swelling up in his body, and he looks sickly, and he's barely able to move, but he is equally qualified for the job. Who does the employer give the job to? The guy that both of them equally qualified, same school, same experience, same everything. The only difference, one is healthy and one is sick. Who's going to get the job? The person that's going to get the job, of course, the answer is obvious, is the healthy one, which means we have made being healthy a requirement for work, but we have created a system where I can only be healthy if I work. Now, please tell me that made some sense for you. So when people say, I want to take people off Medicaid, how in the world do I stay healthy then if I don't have a job? Unless I have a government-sponsored system that can help me stay healthy so I can work. You can't take care of your children if you're not healthy. You can't perform the task on your job if you're not healthy. How do we expect children to perform well in school? We forget that the overwhelming majority of people on Medicaid are not able-bodied people who just don't want to work. The overwhelming people on Medicaid fall into one of two categories. Either they're children or they are adults who work jobs who deliberately limit their hours so they do not qualify for health care benefits, or the cost to the employee is so exorbitant that the employee can't afford it, so they have to opt out of it. Given these scenarios, you tell me how it is good public policy to remove but here we are with a gentleman who is running for U.S. Senate on the Republican ticket, who has fully embraced the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. So there are tax cuts, there are tax implications, there are healthcare implications, there are implications to everyday people as a result of this race. Let me comment and take us to the end of this segment. Let me comment on this as a faith leader and as a former legislator, because I think wearing both those hats gives me somewhat of a unique perspective. First of all, let me just say this. I personally struggle. I'm asking you to begin struggling. I'm asking you to begin processing. When people deliberately stoke division, when people are openly willing to ignore those who are the least of these, it should raise a red flag for us. What type of human being doesn't care about children? Let's be very clear. If you want to strip Medicaid benefits from them, reduce SNAP benefits from them, and make sure that they don't attend a school that is properly resourced, then you are anti-child. If people work in hospitality, if people work in the food industry, if people are on farms picking food for us, and we don't provide them health benefits, then I am anti-hospitality, anti-small business, anti-farming. The crazy thing is that these are the very individuals who claim to be so pro all these things. But all we have to do, listen, y'all, you can judge a tree by its fruit. I don't have to wonder what you believe. I just need to simply see how you vote. I just need to simply see who you endorse. I just simply need to see what policies. And when we talk about, the reason I'm running for office is because whether you talk about the state rep in House District 25, where you talk about the state rep for Franklin and Vance counties, where you talk about the state senator, all of them have a full throttle endorsement of everything that is anti-North Carolina that I'm explaining to you. That is the reason why I'm running. I'm not one of those guys. If I felt like we were getting good representation statewide, I would not be running. I have lots of important things to do, lots of things to keep me busy. But our representation is so poor. So as a pastor, let me make a few other comments. Let us be clear that if you insist on running, because why am I raising this? Because Whatley has degrees in religion. I believe one from Wake Forest. And I think one from Notre Dame even. So I'm the religious guy. So, okay, sir, pull your Bible out. Let's have a Jesus conversation. Let's have a conversation. We can have an Old Testament conversation. God has always been pro-family and pro-children. When the children of Israel when Moses approaches Pharaoh about letting God's people go, Pharaoh begins negotiating with him to try to figure out a way for him to get some kind of partial deliverance. One of the things that Pharaoh says to him, it says, all right, fine, you go, but leave your children. You leave, but don't care about the children. God pushed back. No, we're not taking that deal. We care about our children. We literally have elected people who don't care about children. Listen, do you know how complex the adoption system is right now? Do you know how hard it is for children who are involved in DHS and other spaces, social services, to make sure that they are in safe environments? Much of that is legislation, General Assembly driven. I'm going to repeat myself. For those who have just tuned in, I'm glad you're here. I'm James Gailliard. This is Until All Thrive. Every Monday, I'm having conversations with you about the things that matter most, and I'm asking you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Facebook, and I want to keep bringing this content to you week after week. There are more children in traditional public schools. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to bring us a common sense argument. That's all I'm trying to do. I want us to stop drinking the Kool-Aid. I want us to become critical thinkers of these issues. The data speaks for itself. Do I have more children in private school, charter schools, traditional public schools, or homeschool? Those are the four principal places children get an education. I just need you to hear me logically. Put the partisanship aside. Traditional schools, charter schools, private schools, and homeschools. When you add up charter schools, homeschools, and private schools, there are still, I don't even know the exact data, but I can tell you this, they might account collectively for 20% of all children. I'm going to give it 20%. I'm going to have my campaign manager do it. Give me that data. Let's just say, and next week I'll have the exact number, and if I'm wrong, I'll own it. But I can tell you I'm in the ballpark. Those account for 20% of kids. Hear me. If I am passing legislation to strip funding from the 80% of kids and to siphon it over to where 20% of kids are, how can I claim that I care about children when 80 out of 100 children I'm hurting to the benefit of only 20 out of 100? But yet, we wind up drinking the Kool-Aid. Oh, well, it's choice. It's vouchers for low-income families. I'm going to get into that whole nother issue. No, sir, ma'am, you don't care about kids. If you cared about children, if you cared about them having access to health care, if you cared about them having a good education, you would not discriminate against them. Isn't that funny? DEI. Civil Rights Act. Everything that we have created to keep there from being discrimination, there is an outright effort. People that represent rural Eastern North Carolina voted in favor of anti-DEI initiatives. Why? Think about this. Why would you do that? Let me tell you why. Because if I can strip any safety measurements for the 80% of kids, then I can then allocate resources to the 20% of kids. I can create an unfair distribution of resources to damage the populace and hurt the smaller group of children over here that look like them. So I have a problem with that as a pastor. I have a problem as a pastor with widening the gaps between the haves and the have-nots. I don't see that in Scripture. And I think any of the people that are running for office on a platform of faith, like Michael Whatley, like Mark Robinson, like Donald Trump, any of them who are running on a platform of faith, like Mark Harris in Congress, yeah, I'm going to call them all out because they deserve to be called out. And I have as much theological, doctrinal background, if not more, than they do. So I can speak to it biblically and doctrinally. And so I struggle because as I read the Bible, I don't see a disparaging, marginalized groups of people that are dismissing the struggles of women and poor people. I don't see that in the Bible. I don't see where women become second-class citizens. I don't know. I don't know how women vote for this stuff, man. You know, if there are women out there that vote Republican, I'd love to know why. I mean, I just saw an article. I think Pete Hesek said it. I'll pull it up. Maybe I'll get to it for next week, where they were lifting up a pastor who basically said women shouldn't be able to vote. The family should vote as a block, and the husband should have the vote. The man should have the vote. I don't know how women vote for that. Like, I guess if you had to choose, y'all remember that, was it, man, what was it? It was a show back in the day, like in the 70s. Man, it's escaping me right now. But it was a little boy talking to an older white man, and he asked him something to the question, something like, would you rather be white and live to be 50 or black to live to be 100? And like, he was shocked. He didn't know how to answer that. And that's what I think sometimes with women. Like, I'm wondering, are you like, you know what? I'm a female and I'd rather be stripped of my rights, but at least I'm not black. I mean, is that what the sentiment is? Like, I don't really know. I don't really know because I'm not a female. But it's some alliances are unholy. Some alliances just don't seem to make sense. And so when a candidate is elevating rhetoric like Whatley is, all I'm going to say is expect a firm rebuttal from this microphone. So both from a policy standpoint, I'm going to rebuke the notion of their policies. I'm going to rebut the notion of their personalities. And I think we don't need to be funneling money to billionaires as if trickle-down economics, like Reagan said, is going to work, because it's been proven it doesn't work. So I think we need investments. We need investments in broadband. We need investments in healthcare. We need investments in public education. And we need people like those who are on the other side of this microphone who recognize that there's value in every person and not just the people at the top. And so my rebuttal for Mr. Whatley and your run for the U.S. Senate, sir, because I want to get out the gate early addressing you and your hypocrisy. My rebuttal for you is that we don't need anybody echoing Donald Trump's policies in this state. And my rebuttal for you is that we don't need a Mark Robinson 2.0. What we do need is principled leadership. What we do need is policy that's going to uplift all people. What we do need are people that are grounded in truth. What we do need are people that are grounded in decency. What we do need is our people that have a vision where everyone can thrive. This is not a partisan idea. This is a moral idea. And it should be at the heart of all of us. And it's absolutely at the heart of this podcast. Hey, I'm James Gailliard. And if you just tuned in, I just finished segment 1 and I'm 45 minutes into the show. I want to do a deep dive on DEI. I'm going to take a quick, just a quick 1 minute break. And when I come back, we're going to jump in on the next segment. Hey, do me a favor and go ahead and chime in, pass this on to somebody else, make your comments. I'll be right back.
Can't legislate love, but we can name hate. Can't fix what you won't face at the gate. So we name it wars, tariffs, ice, wage gap, prison pipe, call each idol down and flip the light. This ain't about fame, it's about food. Not platforms, but power in the hands they exclude.
We won't stop till the whole county rise. We won't stop till the whole county rise. We won't stop till the whole county rise. This is our work until all rise. Until all rise.
Well, I am back, y'all. I did that good. Hey, listen, let me shout out. Hopefully everything is working. I have not checked any comments yet. So I'll do that on all the platforms in just a minute. I haven't checked any of the comments, but let me shout out my studio engineer. All of this is done without anyone else in the room but me. Zantre has done a phenomenal job of hooking up all this technology that's in here. You can't even see it all. But one of the things that he's done is he put everything, I have 3 cameras in there. He's put everything at my fingertips. And so literally with a click of the button, I can move around, give you different shots and all the things. And now I even have a button to click for my theme music. I click it to turn off, a button to click to mute my microphone. He's doing the darn thing. Every week we're going to get better. I'm going to be able to start zooming people on. There's so many other things. I'm going to start having buttons to make sounds and stuff like that for every segment. So if you would go ahead and follow me and subscribe to my YouTube channel and also share this with 2 people, that will be your homework assignment for today. Listen, it looks like I'm only going to get to 2 segments today. Let's jump into segment 2. Segment 2 is on the dismantling of DEI on campuses. So first, let me shout out Winston-Salem State University. Now, you know, I love HBCUs. North Carolina, and a lot of times people get this stat wrong. We don't have more HBCUs than any other state because there are some states that have HBCUs that are 2-year schools. But North Carolina does have more 4-year HBCUs than every other state in the union. And we have some amazing schools here, both our PWIs and our MSIs and our HBCUs. If you don't know all that language, a HBCU is a historically black college and university, like the great ones we have here. I'm a trustee of Elizabeth City State University, and so I want to shout out Elizabeth City State. I'm an alum of an HBCU, Morehouse College. And we have some great schools in our state. One of those great schools, my granddaughter was on her way we moved her in on Saturday to the campus of Winston-Salem State University. And let me tell you, those students were extraordinary. The way they helped out. I spent 7 years moving daughters on and off the campus at UNC Chapel Hill, both on the campus and off the campus. Never one time did a student from Chapel Hill come and help us with a bag or anything. And when I tell you, we pulled up at Winston-Salem, those young people were all over the place. Those Rams were everywhere. And man, we put those bags on the side. And next thing I know, they were in an assembly line, grabbing that stuff, going up the steps. We were on the 3rd floor. I want to shout them out. Even someone from the chancellor's office came up to me. He was moving bags around, helping the students. The teachers, professors were out. The staff were out. Shout out, y'all. Winston-Salem, great job. Want to shout y'all out. Now, lots of our young people are heading back to campus. Some of them are already on campus. Some will be moving in. I think State moves in this week. And other schools have been moving onto campus. I saw a post where one of our young people from Elizabeth City State was back on campus. And so I want to talk about campus life in North Carolina, but I want to talk about it from the perspective of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I want to talk about it from the lens of DEI, because what we're going to find in North Carolina is that our young people are going to be returning, particularly those who are minority students and female students, are going to be returning to campuses without the same degree of support for all students, because our university system, our UNC governors kind of saw the writing on the wall coming down from the Trump administration, thought they would get out in front of some of the directives and mandates. And as a result, they have, we're going to see a disappearance of DEI, disappearance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Sometimes they're trying to create vague terms like dignity and excellence. But in short, the UNC system, and I'm going somewhere with this. I want to share something specifically around DEI that I want you to see it in a different way, because again, the Trump administration, Michael Whatley and the Republican chair and the National Republican Party and our state legislators in North Carolina have some kind of way convinced society that there's this massive group of people getting opportunities that should be going to white people. This massive group of opportunity that should be going to people that we're stripping opportunities from people. Nothing could be further from the truth. The reality of it is that diversity, equity, and inclusion surfaced, first of all, just as a sound business practice. You know, I recognize that we don't have a big Hispanic population in our church. I want to change that. I want to hire a Hispanic pastor. The Lord bless us with one, I will hire one. You know, but I'm not hiring. So well, it means you're only going to hire the person because they're Hispanic? No, I'm not only hiring them because they're Hispanic. I'm hiring them or wanting to hire them because I have a need and a desire to want to reach a population of people that I can't get to without them. It's just a good business decision. It's a good ministry decision. And that's just one small example. I'm just using my church, right? And so what we found is that the UNC systems leadership, backed by our state legislature, these are the people that we shop with. These are the people that show up at our Boys and Girls Club events. These are the people. It's crazy to me. Like, we'll show up at your event. We'll show up in the community. But the very events that we go to support, we then go back to the General Assembly and Jones Street, and we vote to damage that group of kids. It's the craziest thing. What I think what's really crazier for me is like people don't challenge them on it. It's like, fine, let's just let them do whatever they want to do. And so our state legislator, drinking the Kool-Aid of the White House, effectively scrapped campus-wide diversity offices. And so let's talk a little bit about this. They eliminated nearly 60 jobs that were dedicated to equity, even tossed out graduation requirements that taught about our society's diversity. So words like diversity, words like inclusion, all of a sudden were being scrubbed from websites, scrubbed from mission statements, as if something was like, as if that's something to be ashamed of. Y'all, and so there is a climate now of fear. There's a climate of confusion that is hanging over faculties, hanging over staff. And so I want to, for those of you just tuning in, I'm connecting the dots. I'm connecting the dots between Raleigh and Washington, D.C., and what happens in our individual communities every single week. And so we now have, the repeal of campuses that used to have chief diversity officers no longer do. And so it's been placed It's been in its place of chief diversity officers. We have approved a new so-called equality policy. The equality pass policy orders campuses to, quote, I want you to hear this, stay neutral on the political controversies of the day. Stay neutral on the political controversies of the day. In other words, don't teach children corruption. Don't challenge systems of inequity. Don't challenge environments where people are not getting opportunity. And so the theory sounds nice, but in practice, it means shutting down everything that was DEI because it's quote unquote political. And at UNC Chapel Hill, for instance, they literally rebranded the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. And, we hear stuff like dignity and excellence. And so 7 UNC campuses have completely eliminated diversity offices with no replacement at all. And a lot of this had to be done by the start of this school year per the edicts from, the General Assembly and from the White House. The big driver is Trump's administration. And I keep, because we would not be dealing with this at a system level, in a system level way, were it not for the Trump administration. And so they're issuing, he issued executive orders early on banning what he calls racial preferences or any consideration of identity in academia. The Department of Education warned every college, drop all race conscious policies or forget your federal funding. They're literally, it's like a strong arm, like this is like the mob. It's like a political mob. It's like literally the mob. And so because UNC didn't want to lose hundreds of millions of dollars, they fell in line. And even I would argue they overcomplied because now there's things that's coming out of Washington that's vaguely worded. And I'm going somewhere with all this. So let me try to get to it quickly. And so we now have this preemptive strike. The UNC system-wide purge of DEI was a way to ward off the White House scrutiny before it could hit. And at the same time, state Republican lawmakers with an eye on Texas and Florida and their anti-DEI laws were more than happy to push the agenda right here in North Carolina. And so it's a 1-2 punch from the federal and state levels, and our universities are reeling over it. So what does this mean for students arriving on campus? Well, for one thing, it's going to be certain that, certain classes or requirements that taught about racial or gender diversity have been suspended. So now they're not even going to learn about it. Do you know the value of getting in a room? It's weird. I was in a Duke Leadership Forum. I was invited to participate as a fellow in the Duke Leadership Forum. I'm not going to name names because it's not necessary in this particular situation. And I was in a class with some people that were Republicans. And they really, dug in as Republicans. And one of the things that came out of this were those Republicans, and Democrats made the same statement, but but we're not the ones championing anti-DEI, which is why I'm calling them out on it. But literally as we had like the exchange at the ending of the session, they were like, man, we're going to have, one of the things we're going to commit to doing, these are Republicans. One of the things we're going to commit to doing is having lunch, spending more time with people with different views and points of view. They were saying, I want to spend time with diverse people because they learned things that they would not have learned had they been stuck in a room to themselves. The crazy thing is you admit that you benefit from diversity, but because it is politically expedient, will side with lawmakers who remove diversity. So it's strange. Think about it. Have you ever been around someone who had a different point of view and you learned from them? Have you ever had that experience? Have you ever been challenged by someone's experiences, lived experiences that you didn't have? Have you ever been challenged to think about things in a way? Have you ever been around a rape victim or a victim of domestic violence? And when you got done talking to them, you're like, wow, I had no idea that was real. I had no idea. Have you ever had a conversation with a woman about how it feels to try to get up the corporate ladder? My God. Have a conversation with a woman who trying to climb the ladder with a skirt on. how difficult that is. But you wouldn't know that, bro, because you don't wear a skirt. And you won't know it if you don't get in diverse rooms. So it's craziness. Like, you know, I tell my granddaughter, I tell my children this when they were in college on campuses. Part of the college experience is not just the classroom environment. It is the people you will meet that you would have never met. It is the experiences and the clubs and the engagement. It's the opportunity to travel abroad. Now, listen, I'm talking real talk because I want us critically thinking. You ready? So, the Republican lawmaker who signs off on an anti-DEI initiative, like all of ours that represent us locally, and if they didn't vote for it, they were absent. But none of them ever voted against it. The same lawmaker that says, I don't think diversity has a place here, is the same lawmaker that will send their daughter, their son on a trip abroad so they can have an experience with different cultures. So diversity does matter, except when it's on a campus where someone might have an opportunity that they should have rightly gotten, and because your child couldn't meet the standard, they lost the opportunity to the better qualified person who just happened to be a female or happened to be of a darker hue. And instead of you owning the fact that your child was not quite as smart, not quite as up to speed, you want to remove any opportunity for this other person to have any chance at all. Okay. So resources that our children used to have, like cultural centers and mentorship programs and bias response teams, all of that have been either scaled back or all of that's been quietly renamed. And so there's going to be clubs and support groups that our children are not going to have access to. They're going to be, and what's interesting is even with higher education, legacy is still permitted, right? So we discriminate in ways that benefit people, but then we won't create systems and structures to give everyone an opportunity at the table. And this is what I mean by this. What I mean by this is, if I'm a first generation college student, that's a form of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're now including a student who never has had an opportunity in their family to have an opportunity for upward mobility. That is a form of DEI. I am handicapped and I require ADA requirements. I'm wheelchair bound. I am visually impaired. That is a form of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the law now says you can't get a point if you're an extra bonus point for being a first-time student. So two students have, I'm going back to my analogies, similar grades, similar SAT scores, similar grading on their essay. We're trying to figure out on the point structure who gets the nod. This child over here is a first generation college student. You know what? Let's give him a point. Let's give him a shot. Let's introduce college into this family. This student over here is legacy. Their parent went to Chapel Hill. Their parent went to Duke. Their parent went to State. Under the current system, this is what we say. This is not allowed to give an opportunity to, but we will give the point to the legacy student. So we are still creating inequitable structures. All DEI was doing is creating equilibrium, leveling this thing out so everybody gets a shot at a piece of the pie. So, I struggle with this. Let me just make pastoral legislator comments. And then I want to walk you through why this matters in public education every day, and then we'll be done for today. I personally believe, and this is what I was taught as a child, that salvation is a type of education. That it can't can't get you to heaven, but it sure makes getting around earth a whole lot easier. And so, and I'm a pastor. I'm watching literally youth in my church. This is the largest. This is the largest group of students we've ever sent off to college in the history of Word Tabernacle Church. So I'm watching every week. Parents so proud, moving their children in to almost every school in our state, Hampton included, out of state, moving into in-state like Elon and other places. They're moving into Chapel Hill and Fayetteville State and Winston-Salem State and North Carolina Central and Elizabeth City State. The list just goes A&T. The list just goes on and on. UNC Charlotte, UNCG, Greensboro. And so as a pastor, I value education. And I find it morally deeply troubling that we are in a trend where true education isn't about pretending we're all the same. True education is not that we're all the same, that our history has been colorblind. Y'all, education should be about confronting our differences openly and honestly so that all of us can grow from them. All of us can learn from them. And so I find that to operate under the banner of neutrality, to be able to say, hey, listen, when things get complex and heated, we don't want to weigh in on it. Neutrality is in the face of injustice isn't virtuous. It is capitulation. And as a faith leader, I'm going to say to you, we are all called to love our neighbor as ourselves. That means we have to value people of every background. It means we have to give every student, whether they're black, white, or brown, whether they're rural or urban, whether they're rich or poor, we have to give them all an equal chance to succeed. And DEI is what's at the heart of that. DEI at its heart was about living up to the golden rule. It was about the golden rule in an educational setting. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. When we remove DEI, it doesn't make our campuses more neutral. It makes them more neglectful. And that is what our campuses are now becoming. Neglectful environments for other groups of people. And neglectful for the students are there because it's going to rob them of real opportunity. And so whether you are a parent, an alumni, a student, I want you to know your voice matters. I want you to start asking questions to your university leaders. I want you to understand what opportunities are still available for you. I want to keep pushing education in our communities and abroad that everyone gets an opportunity. Let me give you examples as we wrap up today's show about why diversity, equity, inclusion should not have been robbed and stripped from our public institutions. Let me ask you a question. What color is a banana? What color is a banana? That's not an easy question. It's not as clear as you want to think it is. Because the truth of the matter is, for some people, a banana is yellow. For some people, banana is green. For some people, banana is brown. It could be green, brown, or yellow. A lot of it depends on your ethnicity. A lot of it depends on your wealth. So when we test kids with a question like, what color is a banana? And there's only one standard answer. We are then creating educational constructs that give advantages to wealthier, better, differently exposed kids. When we ask questions about yachting, lacrosse, ski trips, y'all, what they do is they reward background, not ability. The kid that can answer about a ski trip or yachting is not because he's smarter. It's because they have a different background. So when we institute diversity, equity, and inclusion, we are leveling out those inequities. When we have gifted and AP programs, and we do a single test to determine who's going to get into the program, or we use a teacher referral system, When we have those kinds of systems under-identify Black students and Latino students, they under-identify English language learning students. DEI would level that out. When we start looking at tracking early ability, what we find is that oftentimes those groups have unequal resources because they may have better class sizes, they may have more veteran teachers, and so they have the ability to track early ability better than other environments. DEI would seek to level that out. I already talked about legacy students and early decisions. They favor wealthy students. First-gen students always lose in these systems. And so when we start, as long as wealthy zip codes get better labs, better theaters, and low-wealth districts have to patch their roofs and reuse books, we're not going to have equity in public education, which is why you need DEI to level it out. Where are my parents who have children in sports, children in band, children in lab, children that go on trips that require fees? That disproportionately impacts negatively lower wealth students. My daughter, my baby daughter, is a world-renowned, world-ranked, world-class ballerina. She dances with San Francisco Ballet. She is a premier ballerina with them. It was very expensive to educate her through ballerina. And we discovered something very interesting as she aged, as she got older. She's 21, or will be 21 within a week. As she went and became more advanced, the dancers of color became fewer and fewer. She, quite frankly, started out one in a number. What we discovered is that there were a lot of great students with a lot of potential. They just did not have the income and the ability to be able to continue in the discipline. It wasn't because they weren't good. It wasn't because they weren't disciplined. It wasn't because they didn't want to do it. They were timely, they were gifted, they were smart, but they couldn't afford point shoes, or they couldn't afford trips somewhere. And so when we act like this inequity is not real, it drives me crazy. How in the world do students possibly even know about opportunities for college when they're in a school system with 400 to 500 students to one counselor, one guidance counselor? You know, and the list just goes on and on and on. What I'm trying to get you to see, and I'll wrap up on this, is that we have real challenges relative. I mean, I saw something recently where graduation was placed on hold because a student had an unpaid balance on their meal plan. So they were potentially not going to graduate, not because they didn't meet, I need y'all to hear this, not because they didn't meet the graduation requirements, not because they didn't finish all the classes, not because they didn't have an adequate GPA, but because we had made poverty a punishable crime. And God forbid, your family doesn't have enough money to pay for your lunch, then that means you can't graduate from our school. The list goes on and on. What about all of the meetings that go on, the parent meetings that sometimes only go on during work hours when there's a need for an individual improvement plan, right? When there's a need for an individual plan for a student to be able to advance. You'd be amazed how many times those meetings are during work hours. And now a parent has to find a way to take off, attend the meeting. Maybe they work for a job that they don't have the ability to get paid if they take time off. Maybe they don't have PTO. And now they're going to lose 2 or 3 hours worth of work, an hour to get to the school, An hour for the meeting and an hour to get back. 3 hours, almost half of their day, they lose in pay that could be groceries. And at the same time, or gas money. And at the same time, or laundry detergent. But at the same time, we're cutting SNAP benefits, potentially cutting Medicaid benefits. This is the political climate we're in. Wake up, people. Let's get involved. Listen, I'm James Gailliard. I'm asking you to subscribe. I am out of talk. I'm out of time, but not out of talk. I'm out of clock, but not out of content. I'm here every Monday talking about all the things that matter. I'm going to put out a post. I'm going to start doing a poll of the week and getting you to weigh in. I want to know what county you're from and what do you want me talking about? What are the things you want to learn about? Hopefully today's conversation was helpful. For those of you just tuning in, watch the replay. It's going to be on my YouTube channel. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Today, in today's show, episode 2, we did a deep dive on the Republican senatorial candidate for U.S. Senate, former GOP Chair Whatley, and we did a deep dive on DEI as it relates to both the UNC system and public schools. I'm James Gailliard. We're here because we want everybody thriving. Tune in next week. Have a great week. I'm gonna leave you out on our theme music. Have a great afternoon.
Can't legislate love, but we can name hate.